Hey everybody, David Heavener here. Welcome to David Heavener TV. And I have a very exciting guest with me today. He's a macro-economist. He loves to educate people on money, but here's what I like best about this gentleman. He wants to educate people on the truth of money. The truth of money. Mr. David Morgan. David, you with me there, buddy?
I am, David. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being on. Listen, so what I like about you, what really attracted me about you, David, is we have something in common. I search after the truth spiritually of God, and you're searching, I mean, you search after the truth of money. Not that you don't search for God, don't get me wrong. But what I want to do in this show is marry the two together. I want to see how money fits into God, how God fits into money. My first question, David, is what is the difference between currency and actual money?
Money, in quotation marks, is force. In other words, you'd hear the seashells thing had been money and salt had been money. But basically, money, especially in the modern era, is whatever the government has a gun behind it to say is money. For example, the currency that we now have is deemed money at law, and the only reason it exists that way is because of the force behind it. Now, to do a better answer, maybe what you're looking for is throughout time, when people have been able to, in certain time frames, determine what suited them best as money, it's always been what I refer to as God's money, which is both silver and gold. If you look at silver from a biblical perspective and gold from a biblical perspective, those two words are mentioned throughout the Bible. In fact, there's a book called God's Money from a gentleman. He just sent me this book a few months ago that quotes all of the verses that gold and silver are used throughout the Bible. And I'm halfway through volume 1, and there's going to be 3 volumes when he completes this study. So money really is physical gold and silver from my perspective. Currency is a piece of paper that can represent gold and silver, but most of the time it morphs into something that doesn't.
Right, that the government deems it's paper, it's our paper dollar. So, by the way, I think gold is mentioned like 417 times in the Bible, silver 320 times, money is like 140 times, but a lot of that's in translation. David, here's my question. How does God view America's handling of money, in your opinion? God's looking down and he's seen how we have handled money. And I'm picking out America specifically. I know it's worldwide. Is God happy about this? I mean, how is he looking at this?
I think, the edict was to be good stewards of what I provided. And if you look at gold primarily, but gold and silver as money, people say you can't exist on a gold standard. And the answer is that's absolutely hogwash. Basically, we lasted 100 years at a gold standard, and a loaf of bread cost the same that whole time, more or less. So if you look at the gold increase over time, it's roughly 2%. So you're adding to the money supply. And if you added to the money supply and you took into account real honest transactions amongst the populace, you would probably have a lot more what's called now the big word sustainable development. In other words, you wouldn't have misallocation of capital. You wouldn't have all the gambling. You wouldn't have all the side bets, the derivatives, all that stuff that now is part of the financial system. I don't think that would exist under the terms of real money or honest money. So I think looking down from on high, the Father of all would be very disgusted with the inability of man to be good stewards of what was provided. We really had a one-to-one correspondence of what's provided and acted in an honest manner with each other. It'd be a lot different.
Oh, I know. I mean, you got kids, I've got kids. I mean, and I'm sure you feel the same way. But if I looked at my kids and they handled money like the U.S. has handled money, I'd probably take the money away from them and say, hey, when you grow up and learn how to handle it, come back. So do you believe we're going to have a financial collapse? I'm hearing all this stuff that, you watch YouTube, you hear people say this and people say that. Do you really believe there's going to be a financial collapse?
I do. And I really believe we had one or the start of one in 2008. I mean, if you just Google major corporation bankruptcies from the 2008 financial crisis, you'll get a huge list. You also see a lot of people that were displaced because of the illegality of the mortgage-backed securities, or basically people that were signing up for houses that really couldn't afford them and they weren't vetted properly. And this is all part of the big scam that was known by the banking industry.
Right, exactly. And you said something in one of your videos that really touched my heart. And I'm going to paraphrase, so I'm sure I'll massacre this, but the demise of a currency, the when a currency is destroyed, the demise of a currency is directly correlated with the moral compass of a society. Yeah. Do you agree, because I believe this, that the more our society decays morally, okay, the more the money decays, basically, kind of goes down the same level. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, I have made that statement many times. I mean, the Roman Empire is pretty clear on it, and other places. I mean, you can look at a lot of examples of history. But I mean, Rome started on a silver coin, a denarius, and at the end of the Roman Empire, they were basically washing a copper coin in silver, and the senators went from representing the people in a true republic to basically a free-for-all, getting as much as they could at the top, and citizenry be damned. And the last point on Rome is most don't understand or realize that at the end, many people were coming in the country, or excuse me, into the city-state, Rome, because of free bread and circuses. They wanted the welfare state and to be entertained. So it was a great thing to try to get.
Yeah. This collapse you're talking about, how do you see it happening? I mean, I understand you don't have a crystal ball, but I want to get your take on it. How do you see this coming down? Can you give me day one, week one, month two? How do you see it happening?
That is a tough one. I've certainly looked at it a lot. I mean, I think so the bond market collapses. So whatever is the precursor of that, I don't know. Some event happens, all of a sudden the markets freeze, and you get this freeze is a good word. So the banks stop trusting each other, exactly like what happened in 2008, except this time they can't reboot the system. So that means that your ATMs are closed down, and there'll be a lot of rhetoric coming from the political side and the banking industry, and they'll throw out somebody from the Federal Reserve and say, it's a temporary thing. The ATMs will be up next week. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And they're not.
It's going to be confidence, the loss of confidence, because once you have a run on the banks, it's like a herd of cattle out of control, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So once it goes down, however it starts, you can't get it back up. I mean, if you look at Peter's book about the collapse of complex societies, there's lots of reasons that they collapse, but the one fundamental fact is no matter how they started their collapse, once it starts down, it can't come back up. That's
okay. So this leads me into this. I'm making this TV series called The Last Evangelist, and one of the episodes is called Cashless Society. Yeah. Do you think this is a precursor? Do you think this is going to take us into a cash? Do you believe there's going to be a cashless society?
Well, I definitely think that's what they want, and I think there probably will be. Okay. I mean, it's all about control. It's not about money per se. Money is power. They have all the power they want because they can create all the money they want. What they really want is control, and absolute control. They don't only want to know every purchase you make. They want to make sure they tax every purchase that they deem is a taxable event. And they also want to know what you're doing, how you're doing it, who you're talking to, everything else. So it's total control of the economic system. And it's top down, meaning they control the production of things. That's total totalitarianism. It's communism at its finest, where they control everything.
Exactly, David. It's not, it's more than monetary control. It's control of a human. If they could control our soul, they would do that. But they want to control everything about it. It's just the beginning. I take people back to the Holocaust. This is what happened in Germany. Is just going to be the fly on the rear end of a cow compared to what's coming down the road. Now, on this cashless society, how do you see that happening? In other words, things crash, people can't get their money. How are they going to move that from that point, with banks closed, no money in circulation, to a cashless society?
Well, they'll so this presumes that the electrical system is still up, and I presume that as well in this in the answer. Yeah. And they'll basically say, look, we've got a new system. What we're going to do is you're going to be moved onto a blockchain. you will have an account number. The bank's going to send it to you by email. If you don't, come to your bank or go to your nearest post office, and you will be given so many federal credits. And those federal credits will be used for all transactions from this point further. I mean, that's one way it can happen. There's several scenarios. That's a way. So now you're in this cashless system where everything is digitized, which, by the way, it mostly is right now. I mean, anybody that knows anything about the banking system knows that they just have a bunch of digits in a computer somewhere.
Right.
No. So that would be the method. And then all transaction would go on the blockchain. So you would no longer ever get a Social Security check in your mailbox. Blockchain.
Yeah. And this brings me to my last question, the chip. In the Bible, as Christians, we consider it the mark of the beast. But it doesn't matter whether a person's a Christian, believes in God, doesn't believe in God, the chip, okay, however form you see it in. Do you think that this cashless society has anything to do with the chip?
I mean, a lot of people are taking it for, larger corporations or medium-sized corporations for convenience, so they can get into secure areas and get to the lunchroom and, don't have to worry about security, the guard. They just, wave their hand because they have a chip in there. I certainly think part of it. I'm not certain that you're going to need to just refuse the chip to be safe. I think just by being on the blockchain, you may have gone one step too far, but I think that's kind of an individual thing. I do, from my heart of hearts, I truly believe that you are going to know if you're going that one step too far. I really believe that.
Yeah, and this is the last thing I want to say, which is very important, what you stand on. And when you said you'll know in your heart, when people want to prepare for this coming collapse, for these days ahead, which are truly going to be horrific, you told me something that really touched me. Now, if you don't remember what that is, I'll help you out. But do you remember I said, David, of all the things you can do to survive, what's the main thing you're going to have to do?
But I said you have to have your heart into your community. I mean, you have to be spiritually fit. If you're not spiritually fit, you don't stand a chance, regardless of how much silver you stack.
That's right. In other words, it's from the inside out. If your heart is not conditioned, your mind's not conditioned, if you're not tied into the community, all the prepping in the world's not going to make any difference, right?
That's exactly
right. In between, and this is my last question, but between gold and silver, because there's a lot of people that don't have a lot of money, myself included. I mean, we're not multimillionaires. But if a person bought something, are they better buying, in your opinion, investing in silver or in gold?
I think silver, but it's more volatile than gold. But where we're at right now, as you're doing the interview, I mean, it's under the cost of mining it, basically. So that's a gimme.
Okay. And how much is silver now per ounce?
Well, we're looking at like $15.50, or should I say Federal Reserve notes per dollar.
Okay. All right. So maybe what you should suggest, we would suggest to people out here, you get a paycheck. Maybe if you can take 3, 4, 5% of your check, and go in and just buy some silver coins, right?
Right.
Yeah. And what kind of coins would they buy?
Well, it's up to the individual. But if you're in the U.S., I think the best thing to buy is what's called constitutional money. You buy what money, not currency, is, and that would be pre-1965, so 1964 or older. 90% silver coins that come in dollars, half dollars, 25-cent pieces, and dimes.
Wow.
That's a great way to
start. All right. That's awesome. David, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Listen, I'm going to read your report. Hey, you got me excited about this, but I appreciate everything you're doing for the people out there and the strive for the truth of money. Okay.
Thank you.
Take care. David Morgan, everybody. I'm David Heavener. Don't forget to go to lastevangelist.com, sign the newsletter. If God leads you, please donate. We're doing this series on donation only. And I want to thank you guys for being with me. Take care. God bless.